So there's a new report from Bloomberg and some other sources that Joe Biden will soon be revealing his new tax plan that will, for the first time in more than a generation, almost 2 generations, be a significant tax increase on the rich and wealthy and well-connected. I want to read you this reporting. It says here, President Biden is reportedly planning the first major hike in federal taxes in almost 30 years to fund the economic program set to follow the recently approved $1.9 trillion stimulus package. Unidentified sources told Bloomberg that the increases will reflect the promises made during his 2020 campaign. The planned increases reportedly include raising the corporate tax from 21% to 28%, increasing the income tax rate on people making more than $400,000, expanding the estate tax, paring back tax preferences on pass-through businesses such as limited liability companies, and setting up a higher capital gains tax rate for individuals making at least $1 million. And guys, that's fairly decent. Look, one thing that's missing here that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren want to have done is a wealth tax. There is no wealth tax here. A wealth tax would basically say to mega wealthy people, 50 million and up, that every year on all your net worth above 50 million, you're going to have to pay, this percentage. And that number would go up for 100 millionaires and for billionaires and for multi-billionaires. And that would address the fact that under broken systems, some people got very wealthy, and it's not fair to let them just start the new game with all of their wealth that was built on the backs of the working class. But there's some good things here. Specifically, it's not just small little increases. That's a fairly significant corporate tax increase, which could have an effect of making some of the richest corporations pay more taxes. There's also the increase in income tax, but only for those above 400,000. You might have a debate whether people between, say, 100 and 400 could also have their taxes raised. But the fact of the matter is, it's not something that's aimed at the middle class. So politically, it's unlikely to be devastating, as if he said, I'm going to raise taxes on everybody making above 75. But what's also important there is a couple taxes aimed specifically at wealthy people. And I want to talk a bit about capital gains, because that one is very important. When you hear people like Warren Buffett and other millionaires and billionaires talk about how, at the end of the day, their effective tax rates are lower than the tax rates of their secretaries or the people that work under them, capital gains is one of the reasons. That how you make your income matters sometimes more than how much you make. Because in the US, like in many countries, and Canada is one of these as well, capital gains is often taxed at a lower rate, meaning that if you earn $100,000 of labor income, like you have a job, whether it's white collar or blue collar, you make it as a teacher or as a plumber or as a waiter or whatever. And so what Biden wants to do is increase the capital gains rate for people that have high incomes. And I think that's very important. I think that's extremely important because it doesn't hurt the person that maybe, sells a little bit of extra stock, but they don't actually make more than 50, 60,000 a year. But it does get at people who make the vast majority of their very high incomes off capital gains instead of labor. There are lots of people who make very little labor income, but a ton of money off investments. So this is a good start. And as the piece is framed, it's like the first time since 1993. And I think that's crucial because somebody like Joe Biden, back in the 90s, because he's been in politics a long time, was part of that neoliberal consensus that helped to create this low tax environment, that helped to create this environment which supposedly would create trickle-down wealth for the working class, but it didn't. And so Biden, even considering some of these changes, is a sign that he's realized that economically and politically, this tax system to benefit the rich above all isn't quite as ubiquitous. It isn't quite as popular as it was 25, 30 years ago, right? And of course, you have to note the influence of people like Bernie Sanders. I mean, Bernie Sanders, whether it's on taxes or whether it's on unions, is hammering the richest and wealthiest people in corporations. I mean, yesterday alone, he went on MSNBC and basically called Jeff Bezos out like in a WWE promo.
Let me just put on the screen a graph that shows union membership over time in the United States, going back to the 80s, where 20% of American workers were members of unions. We're at a low now, about 10.8, almost 11% of members of the workforce are in unions. You've asked Jeff Bezos to show up before a hearing. He said he's not going to. So if you say something to him now on this show, someone will get it to him. What is it you want to say to people like Jeff Bezos right now about unionization? You now have...
It's the same message that I say to the owners of Walmart, the Walton family, the wealthiest family in America. We're living in an economy where the very, very rich are doing phenomenally well. Working families are struggling. So I say to Jeff Bezos, Jeff, you're worth $182 billion. That's a lot of money. What is your problem with allowing workers in Alabama to organize for better wages and for better working conditions? You can afford to pay them more. And to the Walton family that owns Walmart, you're the richest family in America. Why are you having a starting wage of $11 an hour so that your workers have to go on public assistance supplemented by the taxpayers of this country? We are going to deal with this issue, Ali, of income and wealth inequality. It is a very dangerous issue. It is worse now than at any time it has been in the last 100 years. We cannot have a moral society or a strong economy when so few have so much and so many have so little. That's the struggle we're engaging in right now.
Senator, we're going to watch these hearings this week to follow up on this. You don't, fortunately, have to convince Americans that a higher minimum wage is required, but you're going to have some efforts getting it through Congress because we saw that happen when this bill went through. But we'll continue this conversation. Thanks always.
And so you can see things are changing here, and you could see it with Biden that he made that video a couple weeks ago where he didn't outright endorse the Amazon union, and he didn't outright condemn Bezos. But the subtext was unions are good and workers should join them, and employers must resist the urge to interfere with their workers' basic right to join a union. And Amazon was doing that, and Amazon should stop. So I'm not convinced that Joe Biden is going to become a dyed-in-the-wool, true blue progressive. But I am saying that the political tides are shifting, and Biden is a weather vane to a large degree. And I think what Biden senses is the political winds are blowing in a progressive direction. And that means all of us that believe in that have to keep blowing, have to keep pushing that weather vane in the correct direction, because we might actually see some significant tax increases on the rich, and that's good to see.